State Department reissued its travel advisory for Venezuela, labeling it "Do Not Travel." Joining us to discuss is Taylor Hathorn, visiting fellow at the Independent Women's Center for American Safety and Security. So, Taylor, good afternoon to you. The U.S. is not alone, far from it, from doing this. It's reported that Norway, Sweden, Canada also advising against travel to Venezuela. Germany, the UK, Ireland, and Australia also advising against all but essential travel. So what are your thoughts right now on this situation?
Well, I think that this is just a further indication that these other nations know that Maduro and his regime are really unhinged, and they're willing to do just about anything necessary to maintain power. I mean, I don't think that you would have 8 million Venezuelans fleeing to borders or neighboring nations around them, including the United States, if everything was hunky-dory inside of Venezuela.
And as well, in addition to that, President Trump has said the U.S. would start conducting land operations in Venezuela very soon. So in your view, how soon could this start? Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro said yesterday that he had a, quote, respectful and cordial call with President Trump over a week ago.
Listen, as a Gold Star sister and an older sister of Marines and, someone who works with military personnel on a regular basis, I hope the answer to that question is that we never have to do this, that we never have to have forces on the ground in Venezuela. But that really is up to Maduro at this point. He is a unlawfully elected leader of Venezuela. His people are suffering. They are really interfering with the United States, not just in terms of drug trafficking, but in many other areas. And so I think that the answer to that question is really up to Maduro at this point. I hope that a lot of this that's happening with these talks between Maduro and Trump can be settled with diplomacy, that Senator Rubio and his team can settle a lot of this with diplomacy, but only time will tell to see if military involvement is necessary.
Yeah, we'll keep a close eye on the situation. In your view, though, how serious is the threat posed by Venezuelan drug networks? Are the actions by the Trump administration justified relative to that threat?
We've talked about this before. I believe that the Mexican cartels are doing a lot more damage to us in terms of narco-terrorism than Venezuela is. But that does not mean that Venezuela is not a major threat to the United States right now. There would not be a bounty out on Nicolas Maduro if he was an ally and not a threat to the Western Hemisphere and the United States as a whole. They are conducting not just acts of narco-terrorism, they are conducting acts of weaponized migration. They are conducting alleged election interference in the United States and election interference and fraud in their own nation. They're working with Hezbollah, the IRGC, which has been confirmed by the State Department. There are a lot of bad actors that are at play that are partnering with Maduro that are a serious threat to the United States. I mean, at Maduro's unlawful swearing-in ceremony, this last election that he completely legally won, you had representatives from Cuba, China, Russia, Iran there. That is not something that a friendly nation employs. So I think that there's a lot of threats to the United States right now, and it's something that we should be taking seriously as a nation.
So earlier you said you hope that there's no U.S. troops on the ground in Venezuela. Right now, the U.S. is also targeting drug boats, allegedly. Are there any other options that the U.S. can consider to tackle this problem, or have other methods proven not useful?
Well, I want to make sure that I combat something that is a media narrative that is going around right now, that a lot of people in the media are saying that Trump is just going to send in forces without any kind of authorizations from Congress. And that is actually not something that he has said right now. The Trump administration is really threading the needle on legality, on the drug strikes. And I think that we, can conclude that is fairly legal, but they would need an authorization escalation of military force in order to bring in troops onto the ground in Venezuela, which would require congressional approval. But we have a whole nother branch of our government that can be utilized here, which are our intelligence agencies, and they have completely different authorization avenues and levels that our military does. And our United States government should be using our intel agencies to do what they do best.
Okay, Taylor, just one final thing. Reporters have asked Trump if he is using a pressuring campaign for a regime change. What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, Maduro is not a duly elected leader, and he is a threat to the United States. And I think that we, as a nation who loves democratic values, who loves the rule of law, should want the duly elected leaders in each nation to be the duly elected representative and leadership. We should not be supporting nations who sit there and tout leaders who are unelected, unofficial leaders. And so I think we should always support countries who have free and fair elections. And it is very clear and very apparent that Maduro's socialist and communist regime is not a duly elected leadership, and not duly elected leadership for the people of Venezuela. If they were happy, they would not be fleeing their nation. They would not be starving. The value of their money would not be below the earth at this moment. And so I think that we should want the duly elected leadership of Venezuela to be in power.
Okay, well, Taylor, it's always enjoyable to speak with you. Thank you very much for your time today.
You too, Don. Thank you.